Picture a quiet Japanese high school library. Rain is just steadily tapping against the glass. You know that feeling, right? That cozy, slow, after-school mood where time just kind of stretches out. The only sound is the soft rustling of pages. And sitting right there on the counter is a single book. It's a heavy, dark blue, leather-bound volume. Just a school history book, completely unremarkable. But, as we're going to see in this explainer, this very book is at the center of a brilliantly quiet puzzle from Chapter 3 of the Hyouka series. Let's dive in and see how the most mundane details can actually hide some genuinely fascinating stories.
So here's the core anomaly we're looking at today. Why would someone borrow a 50-year-old school history book if they literally have no time to read it? The library records show that this specific, heavy book gets checked out every single Friday. But here's the catch. It gets returned the exact same day, just a couple of hours later, right before the library closes. And this hasn't just happened once. It's been going on for weeks on end.
On the surface, it's just an ordinary rainy afternoon in the library. Everything looks perfectly normal. But when you think about this borrowing pattern, it's actually completely bizarre. The book vanishes from the shelf every week without fail, but the time frame makes it physically impossible for anyone to actually sit down and read a dense 50-year history of Kamiyama High School. So, what exactly is happening to it between lunch and the end of the day?
To understand how this gets solved, we need to step into the geology room, the adopted home of the Classics Club. And right away, we're hit with a clash of two very different worldviews. On one side, you have Oreki Hautoru. His entire life philosophy, energy conservation. If he doesn't have to do it, he won't. If he has to do it, he'll do it as fast as possible. The guy just deeply wants to quietly waste time. But on the other side is the club president, Chitanda Eru. She has this sincere, almost relentless curiosity. She's genuinely fascinated by the mundane little things that people like Oreki just naturally tune out.
It's a fantastic dynamic. You've got Oreki, this tired genius who practically solves puzzles against his will just so he can go back to resting. And then there's Chitanda. When something catches her eye, those wide eyes sparkle, and suddenly, small things feel incredibly important. When she gets curious about something, there's absolutely no stopping her.
Now, their original goal for the day is actually pretty simple. They need to publish the Kanya Festival Classics Club anthology. It's a tradition going back 30 years, and Chitanda insists they have to honor it for the upcoming cultural festival. Oreki, as you might guess, finds the whole idea of writing and publishing deeply exhausting, but he eventually caves. So they head to the library just to track down some old back issues of this anthology for reference.
When they get there, we meet Mayaka Ibara, the student librarian on duty. She is blunt, she's sarcastic, and she instantly roasts Oreki the second he walks in, telling him the library is sacred ground not meant for slackers like him. We've also got Satoshi Fukube joining them. He's always playful, always smiling, and as we're about to see, he has an absolute talent for quietly steering the conversation exactly where it needs to go to force Oreki's brain into gear.
So they're gathered around the counter asking Mayaka about the old anthologies, but before they can even get into the archives, Mayaka brings up a totally different puzzle. She pulls out that thick, dark blue, leather-bound book, Kamiyama High School, Walking Together for 50 Years, and she casually mentions this completely baffling borrowing pattern to the group.
This is where the raw data comes in, and it's absolutely crucial. Let's look methodically at the borrowing record Mayaka shows them. Notice the names: Suzuki, Shima, Yamaguchi, Sawakiguchi, Machida. 5 different girls. Now look at their classes. 2D, 2E, 2F. They're all second-year students, sure, but they are in completely different classes. And then there's the timeline. Every single transaction happens on a Friday. Borrowed at lunch, returned the exact same day after school. 5 consecutive weeks. When you lay the data out like this, any thought of a coincidence just completely vanishes. There is definitely a system at play here.
And right here is the turning point of our story. Satoshi playfully points out the obvious. Nobody actually had the time to read this thing. Hearing that, Chitanda leans in and utters her defining phrase, "I'm very curious." You can literally feel the tone of the room shift. It goes from this relaxed, rainy hangout to a quiet, sharply focused investigation. Because once Chitanda's earnest fascination is lit, she practically forces Oreki to engage with the puzzle. There's no escaping it for him now.
Realizing he's completely trapped, Oreki reluctantly fires up his mental gears. He starts with a logical breakdown, establishing the first absolute truth of the case. If they aren't reading it, because that short window between lunch and after school makes it impossible, then they must be using the physical object itself for something else entirely. It's no longer just a book, it's a functional item.
So Oreki asks the room, what else could you possibly use a massive heavy book for? Chitanda, who comes from a farming family, very earnestly suggests it's heavy enough to compress pickled vegetables, which is hilarious. Satoshi casually throws out that it could be used as a shield. Mayaka grounds everyone in her usual deadpan style, noting it's thick enough to just be a really uncomfortable pillow. It's a fun brainstorming moment, but none of these actually explain that weird Friday pattern across 3 different classes.
Oreki tries a different angle. What if it's some sort of signaling system? Like, maybe the girls are leaving secret messages by dropping the book face up or face down in the return bin. But Mayaka shuts this down instantly. She points right over to the return box, which is just this chaotic, jumbled pile of dropped books. There is simply no way to preserve the exact orientation of a book in that mess. So that theory is dead on arrival. They're stuck.
But then Chitanda, who's been staring intently at the beautiful cover of the book, leans over it. She takes a breath, and she catches a faint, very specific scent lingering right there on the leather, a smell that nobody else had picked up on, the distinct smell of paint thinner.
Okay, let's put these puzzle pieces together exactly the way Oreki does. Step 1, it's a same-day return, so it's not being read, it's being used. Step 2, the borrowers are all second-year girls from classes D, E, and F. Step 3, this only ever happens on a Friday afternoon, so what school activity would group different classes together on a Friday afternoon? Usually, it's physical education or art. And that brings us to step 4, Chitanda's clue, the smell of paint thinner. It's definitely not PE, it's an art class. Suddenly, Oreki stops guessing. He knows. He tells Chitanda and Mayaka to follow him, leading the group out of the library and down the long, quiet school hallways. Satoshi just tags along, smiling, knowing full well exactly what's unfolding. The deduction is already complete in Oreki's head. Now they just need to go get the visual proof. Their destination? The art preparation room, sitting quietly all the way at the opposite end of the campus. And the moment they walk through those doors, that faint smell on the books suddenly makes perfect sense. The whole room is filled with the lingering scent of paint and thinner. Oreki's geographic and logical hunch was absolutely spot on.
And here is the quiet climax of our mystery. Scattered all around the art room are several paintings in progress. They're portraits. As it turns out, the second-year girls from classes D, E, and F take art together on Friday afternoons, and they've been working on portraits of each other. And if you look closely at every single canvas, the subject is elegantly posing, holding the exact same heavy, dark blue, beautifully bound school history book. It was never reading material, it was an art prop.
Tension relieved, the group heads back to the library counter completely satisfied. Oreki explains the final, practical piece of the logic. It's a really heavy book. Instead of lugging a massive leather prop all the way home for the weekend, the girls simply passed it around. They take turns checking it out every Friday for class, and then just return it right before the library closed. It was just a super efficient, completely undocumented student habit.
But as they're finally packing up to leave, there's this fantastic, light-hearted moment. Chitanda stops them. Why did they actually come to the library in the first place? Oreki had entirely forgotten their original goal. They came for the Kanya Festival anthology. And the punchline? The head librarian pops in to inform them that the library doesn't even keep the Classics Club anthologies. Their original mission was a total, absolute failure. Surprisingly, though, nobody is really disappointed. Outside, the rain finally stops. The heavy clouds break apart, and this beautiful sunlight starts streaming into the school hallways. The whole visual tone changes from that moody, gray afternoon into something warm and golden. Oreki woke up expecting another perfectly uneventful, energy-saving day. But somehow, it turned into something incredibly memorable. The true takeaway from all this isn't the puzzle itself. I mean, this wasn't some high-stakes crime. Nobody was ever in danger. It was literally just a book being used for an art project. But the mystery was never really about the book. It was about paying attention. It was about Chitanda's genuine curiosity, taking a completely mundane detail and turning it into an adventure. And it was about Oreki's logic, finding the very human connection behind it. It reminds us that ordinary days become meaningful entirely through our curiosity and our connection to the simple habits of the people around us. Which leaves us with this final thought.
Look around your own school or your office or just your neighborhood. What small, strange, quirky patterns are happening right in front of you? What mundane mysteries are unfolding right now in your own everyday life that you simply stop noticing because you just aren't looking closely enough? Keep that curiosity alive. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, keep looking closely.